All right, Big Mike here. Welcome to Engineers for Communities live show. I've got a really special guest today. Managing the complex nature of construction projects is not something you can go to school for and just instantly ready to jump in and run a project start to finish. That's why I've invited Taylor Pearson, a third generation construction professional who has been leveling up much of rural Colorado with his unique skill set towards project management. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you. Appreciate it. And looking forward to having our discussion.
Yes, sir. So I think it's really neat. I've never heard someone put the third generation spin, uh, especially when you talk about being a construction professional. Tell us about your journey, how you got there.
Yeah, so construction definitely runs in the blood on my side. Grandfather was carpenter unions, builder throughout Colorado and kind of the western states. My father owned his own flooring business, so I was pretty much on whether it was residential, commercial projects, more or less since I could walk. And then beyond that, just kind of as growing up, my dad used me for some child labor, in high school. Didn't have much of a summer. It was more getting to work. So, was able to learn a lot about the industry, the communication, the skills involved, both, the soft skills and then obviously the physical and the quality of everything. So that kind of lead me to continue that generation and make it a third generation and getting in construction. I always was more interested, nothing against residential commercial construction, obviously, but was always more interested in the heavy civil industrial side of construction, just from the technical elements of it and everything like that, and the needs, obviously. So between all that, that's kind of where I'm at today. Graduated, happy, proud alum of Colorado State University Construction Management Program. So been in the industry for about 10 years now and enjoying every bit of it. The
I
good
think
days
some
and the bad days.
I think something that's really unique there is you went to college, you grew up around it and you went to college to get a degree specific to this skill set.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the construction management program at Colorado State University, and I don't say this just because I'm an alumni, but it is one, at least when I went there, and believe it still is one of the top programs in the country. And that was, heavily on pretty much all applications and processes that we deal with day in and day out, and then a lot of, working with internships, making sure everybody had that work experience to more or less hit the ground running as soon as you get graduated and placed at a company.
Well, I think so. Something that's so interesting. Adam told me that you start seeing more of these construction professionals going to school and having master's degrees and all sorts of
Mhm.
degrees to do it. And I've recently come across a frustrated developer he's hired three different GCs internally within or they're trying to be the GC. And so
Mhm.
they've hired three different people and it just hasn't worked out. And a lot of it's that blue collar, white collar, like conflicting. But you seem to be the perfect mix of the two. Like at least you're able to bring both to the table. Like, what do you attribute that to?
I think that just growing up and seeing that blue collar attitude, construction in the last 10 years has changed. I mean, and then you just add it, compound it 20, 30 years. So growing up, seeing that blue collar attitude and not sometimes meeting in the middle to try to, a common goal, common success for a successful project, it kind of led me to believe, man, there has to be a better way of doing things, um, highlighting those soft skills and communication skills. I like to consider myself maybe light blue collar, worker, kind of the best of both worlds. And today's construction and engineering industry, that communication and soft skills is so important. There's so much administrative stuff to keep track of. So it is not as just as simple as banging nails with a hammer in construction right now.
Well, I think what's really interesting, you do it a little differently. As this other developer said, when his contractor would have an issue, they would pull up the plans and be like, your plans suck, F you, and they get all crazy about it, and you're sitting there like, what? Wow, it's like really it puts them in a really defensive situation initially. Like,
Right.
what? How do you come to the table?
Well, again, just kind of piggyback what I said. It's a common goal for a successful project. It's a teamwork. It's the old adage, strongest your weakest link. So we all, owners, engineers, GCs, subcontractors, suppliers, we all have to work together. We all want to be paid. We all want to be successful. So the more you bet heads, as soon as you start pointing fingers, you're going to have a finger pointed right back at you. And more often than not, you're not going to get to where you need to as efficient and as quick as you need to.
Gotcha. So tell me about your history at Glacier. It seems like you've risen through the ranks. You've worked there for how long?
This is going on my 10th year. Yep.
10th year. Wow. Congrats, by the way. That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, and I love working at Glacier. They got me right out of Colorado State University. Started out in the field as what we call as a project engineer. Some companies project coordinators, but pretty much the kind of the middleman between superintendent or middlewoman between superintendent, project manager, and the field and the sub. So you kind of get a good experience of all the field and all the administrative elements that's required to complete a project. And then, I kind of, rose up the ranks, became an assistant project manager for a few years, a project manager as well. And I'm currently kind of wearing multiple hats at Glacier. An estimator, it's more my primary role, but in the event that we need project management, I also swing as, quality control, commissioning manager. So I like to think that my experience within the last 10 years is kind of a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of the industry and for Glacier.
So, I think you said you're also the head of marketing as well.
I wouldn't say head of
Sort of.
marketing, but yeah, it's a business development, more of our pre-construction team and our upper management. We all kind of work together to, find the projects, find the clients we want to work for, website development, proposal coordination, all of that good stuff, just to get us projects and be pre-qualified for projects as well.
So something really interesting, I was going through Glacier's website, and when you go to the About Us, the first thing on there is safety first. Why do you guys pick safety first?
I mean, that is our number one priority. We want our folks, our subcontractors, anybody that comes to any of our projects and works to go home the same way that they showed up to the project. You can have a successful project. You meet your budget, meet your schedule, but if you have any safety incidents, any recordables, knock on wood, anybody that gets seriously injured, the way we look at it is that is not a successful project. So we put an incredible amount of time and effort in building and continue to build our safety culture. And the type of work that we do, being primarily water, wastewater, general contractor, high level risk. So it is very critical to maintain that safety culture and just make sure everybody's has that mindset and philosophy.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail. You have these big excavations. You're dealing with sewage, pressurized pipelines,
Right.
mechanical equipment. There's just so many moving parts to these projects.
Yeah, correct. And like I said, you have to have the resources established between your management, your field supervision, weekly or daily inspections, just to make sure, the ship is sailing the right way there from a safety standpoint.
All right. Well, okay. So the next interesting thing, as I was digging through, was your values. And I think we touched a little bit on that transparency. And I wanted to dig a little deeper. I feel like I've been in situations with you, and it's very transparent what your stance is, your take on it, what it cost you guys. Like, where did you guys come up with that? I think it's amazing.
Well, so our company outline is, a trusting Glacier. So one of those T's is transparency. So that's our number one belief, and that just goes back to the partnerships that we establish with the engineers that we work with and the owners that we work with, to be as transparent as possible. Some contractors, they're unfortunately they can be change order machines. They can't qualify their change orders. So the way us project managers or folks that are coming up to that path in Glacier, any cost changes that we have, we supply that backup, can, hold hands just to walk through all the items, make sure everybody's on the same page. Not to say that there won't be any negotiations, or meeting in the middle there, but that is, the way I like to classify it is we're kind of an open book. Pull the onion back as much as you want as that, just to make sure everybody understands where the costs are coming from. Because we're here to build relationships and continue to do more work with people, and just to be as transparent as possible. That is like a key element for us.
I feel like some developers, or I'm sorry, some contractors would look at that and say, don't show them how much those nuts and bolts cost and the gas to go to the store, because they're just going to start picking us off line item by line item. But I think the opposite happens, is like you're forming a much stronger trust with your client.
That's at the end of the day, that is what it's about, is maintaining and or building that trust with the owner. So that's where that philosophy comes from. We want reoccurring clients. It's a somewhat of a small market. Everybody's kind of worked together, so you have that type of opinion, or maybe a black mark on your record, you're going to be kind of holding that for quite a while potentially.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a small world and it's going to go both ways. Everyone's going to be your biggest cheerleader, or they're going to be your biggest villain, and it's going to work
Right.
for or against you. And I think you guys are like cracking that perfectly.
Man, I appreciate it. We work hard. I work hard, just to keep that transparent attitude and building those relationships. You'll probably hear me say that, regurgitate it, but that is important to us. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much our top priority.
So another one, I was kind of just skimming through the values, and I wanted to know what the unlocking value is. Like, how can you kind of explain that one?
Yeah, so Glacier has been around, for 25 years. Last summer, we celebrated our 25th anniversary. So between all of our higher ups and higher up management and supervision, there's decades upon decades of experience in the water wastewater. So whether it's a traditional design bid build, or an alternative delivery, um, how should I say this? It's just one of those important things to, um, I guess, keep that movement going, as a company, and to keep everything established, more or less there.
Yeah, so you guys are going through, you guys are leveling up, trying to on every project. You're saying, what value can we bring to the client? How can we improve on the next one? Is that kind of like a quick summary of it?
Right. Yeah. That could be, implementing value engineering suggestions or means and methods of, hey, this is how you have it designed. Not to say that won't work, but based on our experience, this is probably the best method for all of us, and bringing that to the table.
I had a recent example. Another contractor came up and said, "Hey, the phasing of this project, there's not going to be any pavement here yet. We don't need a jack and bore it. We can just dig it and put the pipe in, put the casing there." And it
Right.
ended up saving the client $150,000. And you're just like, gosh, like everyone wins, right? We're not trying to make anyone look dumb. Like you don't know what the phasing is sometimes when you've got five different parts to a project. And the contractors, I mean, who doesn't want to save $150,000?
Right, and especially a lot of what we do is mostly taxpayer money, so that I'm sure everybody is pretty appreciative if we can save costs. And not only is it sometimes cost, it's also time on your schedule. So then you're kind of doubling up on the savings there.
Love it. Okay, so I've heard you talk about just how much you love working with these rural and disadvantaged communities around Colorado. I feel like you guys have a great little niche in there. People just love working with y'all. What are some of your favorite parts about working with these groups?
Well, one thing for us compared to other, maybe larger general contractors is we don't look at projects as like resume builders. We look at projects that, clean and distribute the water in the communities that many of our employees work in. So unfortunately, some of the major metropolitan areas, that's where all the focus and attention is as far as a general contractor, because those are the larger projects usually. What we like to do is work with those rural or disadvantaged communities, because they need water. They need to clean and distribute their water just like everybody else. And unfortunately, sometimes they get pushed to the wayside. So we've done some work up in the mountains communities, worked with you up at Arabian Acres. We got 2 current projects in southeastern and eastern Colorado for rural communities, small town of Cheraw and town of Eckley, small areas, doing some filter skid replacement and a separate contract being water tower construction. So it's just good to give back to these communities. One of the most enjoyable things I probably experienced in Glacier is the town of Eckley is a CMAR project for us, and we got to the 90% GMP and brought it to the board for approval, and it was kind of a town hall setting, and most of the town was there. It was in the high school gym. So our vice president, principal estimator, and myself, we went through all the pricing, the projects with pretty much, like I said, the entire town. And to see people's eyes light up and see the smiles and know that how excited they are that somebody's there to help them, man, it's gives me goosebumps right now just thinking about it. So that's the kind of stuff that really gets you
Yeah.
excited.
What and real quick, what is a CMAR project?
So a CMAR project, for many years, there was just the design bid build. So the engineer selected by the owner does the design 100%, puts it out to bid, contractors bid it, lowest bidders award, typically awarded the project. CMAR, some people call it alternative delivery. We like to classify it as a collaborative delivery. So what it is the engineer still selected by the owner, and then usually there's a proposal element to it, and it's a best value selection that usually the engineer and owner, they have a review committee that selects who's going to be awarded the project. And that proposal includes your project team, your project approach, project references, owner references, and then typically some kind of pre-construction services fee, whether that's like a hard number or maybe just our standard markups. And then once you are selected, with that CMAR process, you get signed up as a pre-construction services. So typically these CMAR projects, the design's about 30-60% when the contractor selected and brought on board. And then at that point, contractor gets with the owner and the engineer. We do design workshops, project kickoff meetings. And then as a GC, we take the current design, price it up, usually with a contingency. You can be a little bit more flexible as far as subcontractor and supplier selection, because again, it's best value selection, right? So as a contractor, we get all these numbers, provide GMPs, 30%, 60% as the design progresses. And mind you, when you submit all your pricing, it is open book. Again, peel the onion back as far as you like. Everybody sees where the costs are. And again, there's usually about 5-10% contingency. And then you get to the design at 90% GMP, you're pretty much final pricing stage with your contingency. If everything gets approved, your pre-construction services are complete, and then you roll into construction. And from there, it's more or less a similar setup to, a traditional design bid build.
you've kind of been released at that point. Like
Right.
you guys are just rolling. So real quick, going back. So the advantage is that you're coming in at 30-60%, somewhere in that range, and you guys kind of have more cost knowledge than us engineers, right? Because you work on, I mean, you guys see the hard costs, and
Right.
so you'll take the design and say, oh, we could, if we switched from ductile iron to
Mhm.
HDPE, we can, that's a $20,000 cost savings, or am I kind of getting that right?
Exactly. Yeah, that you can really accelerate that value engineering input, that means and methods input. You can also do pre-procurement tactics. Say you have a system, piece of equipment, assembly, what have you, that is 2024, way longer, long lead time. And what we've been able to do in the past on our CMAR projects is more or less get approvals, because you're able to do submittals and get all the pricing, get approvals for some of these long lead items, right when you do your GMP, so that the time savings compared to a traditional design bid build, where you bid it, then there's a contract, submittals phases, all that, it really can accelerate some things for people.
Have you had some key successes here where guys have brought like significant value that you could think off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, like the two projects that we have for the town of Eckley and the town of Sherrod, those are both CMAR projects. We were brought on board. The design was about 60%. And both of those projects, it's a filtration skid that monumental lead time. But again, we worked with the owner. We're able to get, some purchase agreements established with a supplier. And if I remember correctly, I think that whole kit caboodle, as far as submittals, was approved when we provided the GMP at the board. So before we even got into the construction phase, we had that long lead items going. So that's just kind of goes into that success stories, for rural communities and CMAR projects.
And I think COVID, I don't know where it's at now, and maybe you could speak to it, but COVID really changed the lead times on pipes, or just materials. How
Right.
is that kind of what you're hitting on? Is this process can help absorb that fluctuation in lead time?
It can, and for the most part, things have, kind of plus or minus gotten back to normal for lead times, maybe with the exception of some of the electrical gear, PLCs, MCCs, switchboards, transformers. That stuff's still kind of a bear. But yes, to your question, that being able to get all those approvals and potential releases before you cut loose on construction is just another benefit to that CMAR process.
That's so neat. So if you were a developer or an owner and the engineer comes up to you, or someone says, "Hey, why should I use CMAR? Like what are the main benefits? What would you say, like in a quick summary? Like, this is why you should do it. This is a far superior tactic."
I would say the two biggest ones would be cost certainty, schedule certainty, and maybe three, you have that ability for the best value selection. So you're not going in blind with some contractor that greatly underbids the project and might not even be qualified to perform the work. So you're kind of
Gotcha.
covered on all of those bases. Not to say, again, construction is not a perfect, so schedule and cost could fluctuate, but that CMAR um, delivery method's really that one way to lock things in for everyone.
And I think especially if people have a high priority project and it's guaranteed, because I've got some that just, they get 6 months, a year off schedule. And in the rural Colorado, I see it right now. You cannot afford to miss being done by the end of October in a lot
Oh,
of situations, or at least you need to be in the building working. You can't, if you're trying to pour concrete up in Routt County or somewhere else, you are going to be in a world of hurt.
oh yeah, you got to be on your P's and Q's and just make sure everything's planned and coordinated and having that benefit of collaborative delivery. you already have that input and discussions with the owner and engineer, as the design progresses. So you're just a stronger team overall to potentially absorb those issues.
So you've told me that different communities are asking Glacier to bid on their projects. I think that's like just a huge kudos to you guys. What I think we've hit a couple of these. Maybe why are they picking you, or what are they saying when they're like, hey, we want you to bid it?
I think why we do it is just that, again, that opportunity to help the cause and get these communities, again, clean and distribute water the way they need. A lot of the contractors that, are competitors, all great companies, but again, they just don't really focus on those rural communities sometimes. And I, like I said, I loved working with it. I think it's a management philosophy. Our owner and president and our higher ups, they're very philanthropic in nature, just kind of butchered that word. But it's just kind of that philosophy and mentality that we do try to help people out as best we can.
Gotcha. I'm hearing this. I hear the feedback. They're just uh, they love it.
And I
Okay,
think,
so go ahead.
well, I'd say just to go back, why they reach out to us, and I think that just is a testament to, our how long we've been in the industry here in Colorado, and the relationships that we have established, and what people know of us, and being able to jump at the cause to do whatever we can.
Do you
There's
guys have?
no
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I just keep going. There's no project necessarily too small for Glacier, and some companies, there's a line where they don't want to cross, and we don't believe in that.
Wow, that's a really good summary. There is no line. There's no line, and
Mhm.
you like come. We'll help you out, and I'm willing to bet Glacier yourself. If you guys aren't the solution, you tell them, and you probably even point them in the right direction. Hey, go talk to Marty or who
Oh
I
yeah,
don't I don't know who Marty is, but you get my point.
yep, nope. That is, like I said, we have competitors, but we know, if we can't perform it, whether we're too busy or just, the resources, or maybe not our cup of tea. Again, like you said, helping that client to guide them to whomever could help them and complete that project. Just another service that we could provide.
So, do you guys have bigger eyes? Like, is Colorado the end all be all for Glacier? Are you guys looking to go to an adjacent state?
We've done some out of state work. We've done some work in the South and North Dakotas and Wyoming. I think ultimately right now focus is in Colorado company. So, building these communities, and getting to their facilities where they need to be. The amount of work we're able to land in Colorado, it hasn't been much of a need yet to kind of broaden the horizons.
So you're kind of as the phrase is, you guys are an inch wide and a mile deep.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Pretty much.
Okay. You guys are secured in there. And like it's a compliment, right? Because the attention to detail, the focus, the way you guys bring it, I think it shows, right? You're not looking at hundreds of things all over the place. You
Right.
guys know where you guys are great and you guys perform great there.
Yeah, it's one of those things of knowing your lane and knowing what you're good at, and sticking to it. So, again, Colorado, born and raised company, and want to stay here and established, and keep things rolling.
I love it. So you guys have had a lot of recent wins. We started talking about I don't want to butcher the name. Was it L
Uh, Eckley and Sherrill, yeah, town of
Eckley?
Eckley and town of Sherrill, yes, sir.
Okay. What other you list you when we spoke a week ago, you listed like 7 different projects that you guys have just been crushing it on. Do you want to share some of these stories?
Yeah, one of our probably larger projects that we've completed over the last couple of years was for South Metro Wise Authority at the Binney plant, which there's multiple municipalities involved with, all that distribution. So it's about a $28 million project, accelerated schedule. And this was, right at the height of COVID. We're able to get an awesome project team put together for it, got the project complete on our side, at least, in about a year, which is the type of work that we had. It's pretty unheard of. Currently on that project, the only thing we're waiting on is just for final startup, and they just got to bring power out to the plant. And so that's probably one of our major success stories. Town of Eckley, town of Cheraw, kind of spoken for. We're trying to broaden our horizons, not only on the Front Range of Colorado. So we actually have and I'm a project manager on it right now, odor control improvements project for the city of Grand Junction at their Persigo wastewater treatment plant. And those folks over on the western slope and the engineer we were working established out there. Not a whole lot of contractors, not much interest, unfortunately. So that's a really good success.
What goes into an odor control project? I'm not familiar.
So it's a biotrickling filter. So it's pretty much an odor scrubber, right? And connect to more or less the upstream of the headworks at the flume at the plant. And the system, you have odor fans to pretty much suck in all the odorous airs, and then between all the process of it to scrub it out and clean it. And we're doing that at a couple other sites at the city of Grand Junction too, or one other site, excuse me, at the city of Grand Junction. And that's more of just, kind of getting into the requirements and getting facilities updated there.
And just to kind of, I'm just winding it back there. So no one was really interested or qualified, and it just came down to Glacier?
No, I think there may have been a couple. I think there was 3 or 4 bidders. It's about a $5 million project, but a lot of our competitors are based on the Front Range in Denver or the surrounding areas. So I don't know if it's they don't want to go over the hill, go over the divide or what, but right, that doesn't stop us. And there's a lot of work, a lot of people moving out on the western slope, either from Front Range or out of the state, and just getting those facilities upgraded so they can continue to develop is kind of our goal out there.
I think that's where all the fun stuff to do is, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, going on the mesa, and like I said, I don't have any bad things to say about any owners that I've worked with, but the city of Grand Junction, Western Soap people, they're kind of like, rural. They're not city slickers. They know it needs to get done, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get done. And they've just been absolutely amazing to work with.
Do you think, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but the personality of the rural Coloradans, the Western Slopers, it's different, right? Like these people, how would you explain it? It's just like a different person.
Yeah, I don't. It is hard to explain. It's more of I always enjoy working with those folks because I don't want to say common sense, but there's just people of the land. It's hard to explain, but they know how to get things done. Maybe not what some city folks are used to, but they just have that mentality of partnerships and teamwork is really accelerated with them, because at the end of the day we're helping that small community. So they've always seemed, those people have always seemed really contractor friendly to work with.
It's so well because a lot of them are contractors.
Right.
They're some of their day jobs, they're excavators. A lot, like they're blue collar.
Yep. And I think that's part of it. Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Is blue collar kind of sees and can relate to blue collar, our guys out in the field, and you kind of have that similarity between us and them.
Going back, it was Southwest Metro, the $28 million project.
Metro, yeah, Metro Wise Authority. Yep.
Metro Wise Authority. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So $28 million, you completed in a year. Um, it was an accelerated project. What does that mean when you say it's an accelerated project? What does that look like on a planning perspective?
So for that project, we had there's a pretty strict deadline that the owner, as far as their distribution, needed. So it was project was set awesomely as far as setting yourself up for success and the resources necessary. So we had multiple superintendents, multiple folks specialized in mechanical, concrete, earthwork for these larger projects. That's kind of really what you need to do, and able to phase things accordingly to keep multiple areas of work going. That's kind of the accelerated part of the project, just keep things rolling. And $28 million for the type of project it was for a year was pretty impressive, and we're very, very happy to hang our hat on that.
Well, and I think it's so like the complex nature of a project like that. You throw the acceleration on it. I think you've got to be really good at looking at managing lead times, like concurrent items. What can run concurrently? What are I don't know the word, but meaning like this has to finish for the next thing to finish,
Right, right.
or to start. I mean, um, how like how did you get there? Was that your first time like stepping up to something like that, or like how like is it?
That's just kind of based on experience. We've completed larger projects than that in our history. But again, that just goes back to the setting yourself up for success and having the right team. Having one of our most experienced project managers was on that project. Same with superintendent. So having that team and experience and knowing the forethought that takes for minimize potential issues. This job, when it was awarded to us, and it was a design bid build project, COVID had just started. So we got with the owner pretty quick once we were received notice of award. Talked about value engineering items of what we could do to save them some costs, but also say, hey, this COVID is on the horizon here. What type of plans and actions do we need to get in place to minimize the delays as far as long lead times? And I wasn't associated with that project. It was on the pre-construction side, but our construction team obviously did a great job of getting all of
Yeah.
that scheduled and coordinated, and getting the project, our portion of the project, completed well ahead of time.
How do you guys go about? Because I'm guessing when some of these big projects come in, like you mentioned, you have a whole list of subs um, that you have to bring in. How do you guys pre-qualify? Because it's your name on the project, right?
Right.
Andy's electrical shop. I'm not coming to him if I have an issue with your project. I'm coming to you. And so, how does Glacier maintain such a high level of focus? Just like focus with their subs, keeping them on track and selecting them.
So part of it is just the industry that we're in. It is a niche industry. So a lot of the subcontractors that we work with, whether they're electricians, mechanical, HVAC, plumbers, painters, and as well as our suppliers, they're all pretty specialized or are pretty experienced with that. So there's a long history of working together with multiple subs and suppliers. And beyond that, as far as pre-construction, we do have a pretty extensive pre-qualification process. That includes project references, your safety record, your OSHA logs, your EMR, what your available bonding rate is, and a litany of other things that we as a
Yeah.
team will vet, review, make sure not only the pre-construction team's on board with it, but our principals are on board. And then ultimately we'll get that sub or supplier pre-qualified. We have a pretty expansive bidders list and get them added to our bidders list. And as the projects come in, so we put a solicitation list together, get that out there. And then once we receive quotes, that's really when the vetting comes into play, is making sure that they have all their scope elements covered. So there's no surprises, no potential change orders if we were to select them and get the project. So just pretty much making sure everybody's well coordinated and on the same page, to where once our pre-construction team gets the project and we transfer it over to our construction team, there's not much loss there in translation.
I would imagine that they love working with you. You guys probably level them up. Like just working with them. If I was a sub working with someone who's like just leading everyone around me, I would be excited.
We've definitely gotten, not to name names, but we've definitely gotten some feedback from subs and suppliers, based on a relationship and successful project completion, to get those competitive advantages, come bid day or price day, however the project is organized to, and that goes back to building those relationships and partnerships, not only with owners and engineers, but with who we're directly going to work with, sometimes day in and day out with our subs and suppliers. So,
I think
we don't like to burn bridges. If there's any issues that we have with subs and suppliers, again, team level of effort to work through that and hopefully continue to work together.
I think that's so interesting because a lot of people get caught up focused on dollars and things like that, but I haven't heard you mention a single thing to that, hardly. You talk about the relationships, the people managing, and I think that's really the rest of the parts of the equation will fall into place. If we've got a good team, your sub wants to work with you because you're not hard to work with. He's not going to add the jerk fee, a 10% jerk fee
Right.
to his bid. And so you're probably getting nice, clean bids. The suppliers want to work with you. Is that kind of what you see? You don't get these wild swings in bids, like they're pretty consistent.
There can be some swings. Usually those swings are with those companies that we might not have done as much work with. But yeah, for more or less, I mean, these are all, trained, experienced professionals that we work with. So there's not, maybe 5-10% difference, across the board. And that kind of goes in, with general contractors once we bid a project. Ultimately, what you got to be wary of from an owner and engineer standpoint, and ours is the old adage of you get what you pay for. So you got to watch, if you don't really vet somebody out and they're monumentally low, there's probably a reason for that. So again, that just goes back to setting up your project team for success and making sure you're comfortable and confident with who you're selecting.
Well, I'd be curious to get your opinion on this. So I've been in the seat, or I've been around the seat where someone came in really low and like 40% lower than the other group of 4 or 5. And, I hear the conversations with the owner and they're like, okay, like, what are we going to do? Because sometimes they cut bait. Sometimes they say, well, this is a great deal. They may have missed something in their bid. We can manage the project, spend a little more managing the project. But if we end up somewhere between the 40% lower and where everyone else was, it's still a win. It's gonna be a little painful, but these rural communities, especially, like, they kind of need that extra 2 million that they're going to save on what are your stances on things like that, or have you had some interesting situations?
I think it kind of depends on who you're working for, because some districts, municipalities, they do have that flexibility of not selecting the lowest bid contractor, especially if there's a great gap. Excuse me. But yeah, a lot of contractors, if they're that low, like you said, 9 times out of 10, they'll probably pull their bids. It would be tough for me, and I've never worked on the owner side or the consultant side, but it would be tough for me, knowing what I know, golly, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I know it's going to be painful, and I'm sure there's going to be some change orders, but hopefully at the end of the day, we're still below where second place came from. So again, that kind of goes back to what I've said a couple of times, is setting yourself up for success and
Yeah.
kind of knowing when to cut bait and say, all right, well, we might have to go to the second one. I've also seen some folks, for quite low bidders, request additional qualifications, project
Mm.
completion references, just to kind of double check, triple check, you know, if everything on the references sides and qualification sides look good, then hey, maybe I am more confident with the extra 40% that I'm getting.
So your advice to the owners would be, hey, like let's double triple check that these guys have a legit bid and they are legit, like a legit company bidding it, and really like look like scrutinize it before you move forward.
I would definitely say that.
I
Yeah.
like it because, like you said, I think you mentioned it 10 minutes ago. You said, if we start getting into this cost nickeling and diming thing, you're going to get what you pay for. I
Right.
think
Right. And it's just construction's tough in general. There's good days and bad days, but going into working with somebody that's just absolutely miserable and is a change order machine, it's not worth the stress. At least in
it
my
is,
opinion.
right? You get that thing across the table and it feels personal. You're like, did I draw it wrong? What did we do
Right.
wrong? And
Right.
they're sending it over. They're sitting there probably like, oh man, we are out some money right now, and I really hope that they don't fight this.
Right. Yes, sir.
So this is an interesting topic. Lots of people think of contractors and they think, big disputes. Like I hear the word contractor, it's like in my mind, I think, wow, like big disputes, complicated arguments, lawsuits, we're taking it outside of what happened. I've never heard Glacier getting wrapped up into any of this nonsense. Does that just go back to just managing relationships and just working really hard to just bring everything to the table?
Yes. Yeah. Not to say that we haven't had, I mean, we're not perfect. We've definitely had our bouts and had to, come to the table and do some teamwork sessions and negotiation sessions just to work through. But that's the key, is we've always been able to work through that. And more often than not, if at the conclusion of a project, our relationship will be stronger than right at the beginning of the project. So, and it also goes to the type of experience. I'm one of all of our project managers that I have the least amount of experience. Most, some of our people have 20, 30 years. So having that experience and know-how of how to massage things, to just minimize, all the potential issues, is really critical. And
So
again,
you're kind of, oh, go ahead.
well, I just say that the industry that we're in, it's I guess for the lack of a better word, it's an inbred industry. So a lot of owners have worked with, at other owners, or engineers at other engineers, contractors at other contractors. So word of mouth spreads quick. Your reputation, can take a dive or an increase, pretty quick. And we take great pride in our reputation and what we've been able to build out for a lot of communities in Colorado over the last 25 years.
So you think one of the main things that helps kind of avoid massive conflicts or kind of how helps resolve the challenges quicker is you've got 10 years of experience, which sounds like a lot, but in the construction world is not. But you're saying, hey, I've got guys with 25 years, they're bringing it in, and that's like one of the value adds of working
Mm-hmm.
with you guys. Got this tight knit team that's gone through the trenches through the years and get great input.
Well, and that's part of it. And upper management have been with the company 15, 20, 25 years in some case. Obviously our owner, but 20 plus years. So we all know our culture. We all know our philosophy, and it's taken a lot of work to build that up, and that is something that we hold dear to our heart and want to keep rolling.
What is y'all's vision for the next 5 years? Where are you guys going?
It's pretty much, we obviously like to grow. We're growing as a company, to keep being successful in Colorado, and then potentially expanding out, doing more mountain work. We got some items on the iron right now with AquaWorks and Adam, and then continue to potentially broaden horizons out on the western slope. Whether it's Grand Junction or Delta or Mac. There's, like I said, there's a lot of work out there. So just keep on putting the Glacier name all throughout Colorado.
Love it. If where can people find you? Website, email, what's the preferred contact method?
Yeah, so our website is and then
Oh,
as far,
hey, wait, go Taylor.
yes.
You just cut out when you were saying where your website was.
Okay. So our website is www.gcci.com. So that's a good avenue. And then as far as contacting me, email would probably be the best method, just because I'm all over the place. And that is tpearson@gcci.com.
Okay, love it, love it. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your stories, your knowledge, the secrets of what you guys are doing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys grow over the next few years.
Man, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed the time, and yeah, looking forward to keep on working with you guys.
All right, awesome. So yeah, that's it for today. Look out for next week. We've got an interesting district manager, Giovanni Romero. He will be on the show talking about what he's got going on in Routt County, and that's it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.